Jake Morrison checked his watch as the last cargo container locked into place. The Zentari mining station buzzed with activity around him, but he felt oddly disconnected from it all. 300 years as people had been doing this same job. Across the galaxy, 300 years of keeping alien worlds running while being treated like useful pets. Amy Collins walked up beside him, holding a datapad. She was his second in command and had been with him for 5 years now. Her face showed the same quiet tension that had been building in human crews everywhere for months. "All cargo secured, Captain," she said in a neutral voice. "The Zentari supervisor wants to discuss next month's delivery schedule." Jake nodded slowly. There would be no next month's delivery, but the supervisor did not need to know that yet. The plan required them to finish this job properly. No drama, no angry words. Just professional service until the very end. "Tell him I will be right there," Jake said. He looked around the cargo bay one more time. Pete Hansen was running final checks on the magnetic clamps. The engineer had served on alien stations for 15 years and knew these systems better than the aliens who owned them. Lisa Parker was updating the medical supplies inventory. She had saved more alien lives than most species saved of their own kind. The 4 humans worked with practiced efficiency, while dozens of Zentari workers moved around them. The tall gray aliens barely acknowledged their presence. To them, humans were just another piece of equipment, reliable, useful, nothing more. Supervisor Kextel waited in his office overlooking the mining operation. The Zentari stood nearly 8 feet tall with skin like polished stone. His large black eyes showed mild irritation at having to deal with human details. "Morrison," he said without looking up from his screens. "The atmospheric processors in Sector 7 need maintenance next week. Your engineering team will handle it?" Jake kept his expression neutral. "Our current contract expires in 6 days, Supervisor. Any new work will need to be arranged through Colonial Command." The alien finally looked at him. "Do not be difficult. Human, your people have always maintained our equipment. Why would that change?" "Things change," Jake said simply. Kextel made a dismissive gesture. "Submit your crew schedule for next month. We have expansion plans that will require additional human technicians." Jake nodded as if considering it. "I will pass that along to my superiors." The supervisor turned back to his screens, already losing interest. Jake left the office and walked back through the station corridors. He passed construction sites where human engineers supervised alien workers. He saw medical bays where human doctors treated patients of 6 different species. He watched human technicians crawling through maintenance shafts that alien physiology could not access. Everywhere he looked, humans were quietly keeping the galaxy running. They had been doing it for so long that everyone just assumed it would continue forever. The other species had built their civilizations on that assumption. Back on his ship, Jake found his crew completing their final preparations. Amy was downloading encrypted messages from other human vessels. Pete was running full diagnostics on all systems. Lisa was securing personal items in her quarters. "Any word from the fleet?" Jake asked quietly. Amy nodded. "Captain Wilson reports the last evacuation convoy left Proxima Base this morning. Captain Davis finished his supply run to the Hegemony Core. Commander Thompson is wrapping up the medical relief mission to Kepler Colony." Jake felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. After months of careful planning, the withdrawal was actually happening. Thousands of human ships were quietly completing their final missions across the galaxy. No fanfare, no angry speeches, just professionals finishing their work and going home. "What about the research stations?" he asked. Dr. Brooks transmitted all human personnel assignments to Colonial Command, Amy replied. "The last science teams will be out of alien space within the week." Jake walked to the bridge view screen. Outside, he could see the massive Zentari mining complex stretching across the asteroid. Fusion reactors provided power. Atmospheric processors created breathable environments. Quantum computers managed logistics. Navigation beacons guided traffic. Every critical system had been designed, built, or maintained by humans. The aliens had No idea how any of it really worked. Pete joined him at the viewport. Kinda feels wrong just leaving them like this, the engineer said. We fulfilled every contract, Jake replied. We trained replacements when they asked. We documented everything. We gave them 3 centuries of loyal service. And they never once asked what we wanted, Amy added from her station. That was the heart of it. 300 years of being useful. 300 years of being taken for granted. Humans had become so good at maintaining alien civilizations that everyone forgot they might have dreams of their own, the communication panel chimed. Supervisor Kextel's voice filled the bridge. Morrison, your departure clearance is approved. Maintain standard schedule for next month's delivery. Understood, Supervisor, Jake replied. Safe travels. He cut the connection and looked at his crew. Ready to go home. The ship's engines hummed to life. Navigation computers calculated their jump to human space. In the cargo bay, empty containers waited for a delivery that would never come. As they pulled away from the station, Jake watched alien workers continuing their routines. They had no idea that the humans who maintained their life support systems were leaving forever. They could not imagine their perfect little world without the quiet competence that held it together. The hyperspace jump engaged and the Zentari system vanished behind them. Jake felt something he had not experienced in years, freedom, for the first time in 3 centuries. Humans were going to find out what they could build when they worked for themselves instead of others. The galaxy was about to learn what it looked like without them. No fights, no farewells. No dramatic speeches or angry demands. Just the quiet dignity of walking away. The first alarm went off at 0347 hours on Keth. Prime, Chief Engineer Vexmar rolled out of his sleeping pod and stumbled to the control center. Red warning lights flashed across dozens of displays. The massive fusion reactors that powered the planet's industrial complex were showing critical instabilities. Where is Thompson? Vexmar barked at his shift supervisor. Unknown, sir. His quarters are empty. His access card shows no activity for 3 days. Vexmar felt his stomach drop. Carl Thompson was the human engineer who had maintained these reactors for 12 years. Every time something went wrong, Thompson would appear with his toolkit and fix it within hours. The human never seemed to sleep and always knew exactly what each strange noise or fluctuation meant. Contact his replacement, Vexmar ordered. Sir, there is no replacement. Thompson's contract expired last week. He submitted proper documentation and departed for human space. The Kethany engineer stared at the cascading failure reports. Reactor 7 was overheating. Reactor 12 had lost magnetic containment. Reactor 3 was showing plasma instabilities that could lead to a complete meltdown. Without Thompson's expertise, they had maybe 6 hours before the entire power grid collapsed. Get me the human colonial office, Vexmar said desperately. Meanwhile, on the medical station orbiting, Vorth Prime Dr. Rachel Martinez finished her last surgery. The patient was a young Vorthan who had been injured in an industrial accident. Without proper medical intervention, he would have died. Now he would recover completely. Rachel cleaned her instruments and packed her medical bag. Around her, the alien medical staff continued their work. None of them seemed to notice that this was her final day. Administrator Kextal approached as she sealed her equipment cases. The tall insectoid alien moved with nervous energy. Dr. Martinez, we need to discuss your replacement training schedule. The new Vorthan physician will require extensive instruction on human medical techniques. Rachel looked up at him with tired eyes. My contract ended yesterday, Administrator. I have already submitted my final reports. But you cannot leave, Kextal protested. You are the only surgeon in this sector who can perform quantum cellular repair. Our people depend on that knowledge. Then you should have trained someone. Sooner, Rachel said gently. I recommended establishing a training program 5 years ago. The request was denied due to budget constraints. The administrator's mandibles clicked in agitation. We can increase your compensation. Double your current rate. Triple it if necessary. Rachel shook her head. I appreciate the offer, but I have already accepted a position with the Human Medical Corps. They are establishing new hospitals in the frontier colonies. She picked up her bags and walked toward the docking bay. Behind her, Kextal sent urgent messages to every human medical facility in the sector. Each response was the same. No human doctors were available for transfer. All existing contracts had expired or were expiring soon. On the banking world of Luxara, the quantum encryption networks began showing error cascades. Marcus Johnson sat in his office watching diagnostic reports flood his screens. The financial systems that processed trillions of credits daily were starting to hiccup and stutter. Director Luxvan burst through his office door without announcing himself. The golden-skinned Luxaran looked panicked. Johnson, what is happening? To our networks, transaction processing is down 30%. Marcus gestured at his screens. The quantum encryption algorithms are degrading. The error correction protocols are failing to compensate. Then fix it, Luxvan demanded. I submitted my resignation 4 weeks ago, Marcus said calmly. Today is my last day. I have already transferred my access codes to your IT department. Luxvan stared at him in shock. You cannot resign. You designed these systems. No one else understands how they work. That was the problem, Marcus replied. For 15 years, I recommended training additional staff. I was told it was unnecessary because I was doing such good work. He stood up and gathered his personal items from the desk. The documentation is in the system archives. Your replacement teams will figure it out eventually. How long will that take? Luxvan asked desperately. Marcus shrugged. Could be months. Could be years. The mathematics are quite complex. Similar scenes played out across hundreds of worlds. On mining stations, human engineers packed their tools and departed. In research facilities, human scientists transferred their data and left for human space. In hospitals, human doctors finished their shifts and never returned. The aliens barely noticed at first. Humans had always been reliable. They would be back tomorrow or next week. There had to be some reasonable explanation, but the humans did not come back. On the luxury resort world of Paradiso, the environmental control systems began producing random weather patterns. Perfect sunny skies gave way to sudden thunderstorms. Gentle breezes became fierce winds. The carefully maintained climate that attracted wealthy tourists from across the galaxy started going haywire. Resort manager Plexani tried desperately to contact the human climatologist who had run the weather control systems for 8 years. Dr. Jennifer Boyd's communication codes were inactive. Her research facility was empty. Her laboratory equipment was gone. The Parasitian government offered massive bonuses for any human willing to take over the climate systems. The offers went unanswered. Human colonies that had always provided technical support suddenly became unreachable. Emergency repairs failed because no one understood how the human-designed systems actually functioned. The technical manuals existed, but they were written in mathematical concepts that took years to master. Every critical system across the galaxy had the same problem. They worked perfectly as long as humans maintained them. Without human expertise, they gradually degraded into expensive junk. On Titan Station, Admiral Vorthak discovered that his fleet's weapon systems were operating at reduced efficiency. The targeting computers could not lock onto targets properly. The energy cannons fired at half power. The shield generators created unstable protective fields. His human technical advisor, Commander Sarah Blake, had departed 3 days earlier. Her replacement was supposed to be a brilliant Titan engineer with advanced degrees in quantum mechanics. But when the new engineer tried to access the weapons control systems, nothing responded properly. The authorization codes are not working, the Titan engineer reported. Then override them, Admiral Vorthak ordered. I cannot, sir. The security protocols require biometric confirmation from registered human personnel. No humans are currently assigned to this facility. The Admiral felt ice forming in his stomach. Without properly functioning weapons, his entire fleet was vulnerable. And according to his intelligence reports, similar problems were occurring throughout the Galactic Defense Force. For 3 centuries, the aliens had built their civilization around human competence and reliability. They had assumed humans would always be there to fix problems and maintain critical systems. Now they were discovering. What happened when that assumption proved wrong? The galaxy was about to learn a harsh lesson about taking people for granted. The Environmental Control Center on Paradiso looked like a war zone. Flashing red lights illuminated dozens of technicians frantically working at control stations. Outside the reinforced windows, massive storm clouds gathered over what had been perfect beaches just hours before. Director Velshin watched his planet's economy collapse in real time. Hurricane-force winds were destroying the luxury resorts that generated 90% of planetary revenue. The perfect weather that had attracted wealthy tourists for 2 centuries was gone. In its place was chaos that no one knew how to control. "Where is Dr. Boyd?" he demanded for the 100th time. "Still no response, sir," his assistant reported. "Her transport ship left the system 6 days ago, bound for human space." Velshin stared at the weather control interface. Jennifer Boyd had designed this system herself and operated it flawlessly for 8 years. She had tried repeatedly to train backup operators, but the mathematical models were incredibly complex. The other species could never quite grasp how all the variables interacted. Now, the automated systems were running wild without human oversight. What should have been a gentle morning breeze had become a Category 5 hurricane. The atmospheric processors were creating pressure differentials that spawned tornadoes. The orbital weather satellites were sending conflicting data that confused the ground-based computers. "Sir, we are receiving evacuation requests from Resort Complex 7, another technician reported. "Wind speeds are approaching 200 kilometers per hour. "Grant the evacuation," Velshin said helplessly. He turned to his senior meteorologist. "How long until you can restore normal weather patterns?" The alien scientist looked uncomfortable. "Sir, we are still trying to understand how Dr. Boyd's algorithms function. The mathematical relationships are unlike anything in our traditional weather science." "Give me a time estimate," Velshin pressed. "Best case scenario, assuming we can decode her programming methods, would be 18 to 24 months, sir." Velshin felt his world ending. 24 months of chaotic weather would destroy every resort on the planet. The tourist industry would never recover. Billions of sentient beings would lose their jobs. Meanwhile, in the hegemony core world, ships were emerging from hyperspace jumps hundreds of light years from their intended destinations. Captain Zeekmore of the merchant vessel Golden Prophet found himself stranded in an empty star system with no idea where he was. "Navigation, where are we?" he called out. "Unknown, Captain," his navigator replied with obvious distress. "The hyperspace beacon network is providing inconsistent position data. Our jump calculations were correct, but we emerged in the wrong location." Similar reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. The elegant beacon network that had made safe interstellar travel possible for 3 centuries was failing. Ships that should have arrived at major trade worlds were instead dropping out of hyperspace in dangerous asteroid fields or near unstable stars. The network had been designed and maintained by human scientists working under the direction of Captain Scott Williams. Williams and his entire team had departed for human space 2 weeks earlier. They had left behind technical manuals and training materials, but the aliens were discovering that operating the system required intuitive understanding that could not be learned from books alone. Hyperspace navigation involved quantum calculations that had to be adjusted in real time based on gravitational fluctuations and stellar magnetic fields. The human teams had developed an almost artistic sense for these adjustments. They could feel when the mathematics needed fine-tuning in ways that alien scientists found impossible to replicate. Admiral Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his mighty fleet become increasingly useless. Half his ships were reporting weapons malfunctions. The other half had shield generators that flickered on and off randomly. His most advanced dreadnought could barely maintain life support. "Admiral, we have located the source of our technical problems," his chief engineer reported. "Explain," Vorthak ordered. "All of our primary systems use human-designed quantum cores for processing power. These cores require biometric authorization from certified human technicians to function properly. With no humans assigned to the fleet, the cores are operating in emergency mode only. Override the security protocols, the Admiral commanded. We have tried, sir. The quantum encryption is beyond our ability to break. The cores will only accept commands from registered human operators. Vorthik felt rage building in his chest. For 3 centuries, the Galactic Defense Force had been the most powerful military organization in known space. Now they were discovering that their strength had always depended on human expertise that they had taken for granted. Contact Human Colonial Command, he ordered. Offer whatever compensation they demand for technical support. We have tried, sir. All communication channels to human space return automated responses stating that humans are no longer available for military consulting contracts. On Earth, President Helen Carter sat in her office reading reports from across the galaxy. The withdrawal was proceeding exactly as planned. Human ships were returning to home ports. Human personnel were completing their transitions to colonial assignments. Not a single human remained in alien-controlled space. The alien governments were beginning to panic. Her communication systems were flooded with increasingly desperate offers. The hegemony offered territorial concessions. The Trade Consortium promised exclusive economic partnerships. The Titan Empire suggested a formal military alliance with humans as equal partners rather than subordinates. Carter deleted each message without responding. After 3 centuries of being treated as useful servants, humanity was finally free to pursue its own destiny. The aliens would have to learn to solve their own problems. Her aide knocked and entered the office. Madam President, the Galactic Federation Council is requesting an emergency session to discuss the current situation. Tell them we are too busy to attend, Carter replied. We have colonies to build. Across human space, massive construction projects were accelerating. New shipyards were building vessels designed for exploration rather than alien service contracts. Research facilities were developing technologies that had been restricted by alien governments. Agricultural worlds were expanding to support growing human populations. For the first time in 3 centuries, humans were working for themselves. The results were remarkable. Innovation flourished when it was not constrained by alien bureaucracy. Engineering teams solved problems in weeks that had taken months under alien oversight. Scientists made breakthrough discoveries when they could pursue pure research rather than maintaining existing alien systems. Meanwhile, the galaxy burned. Trade networks collapsed as navigation became unreliable. Industrial worlds shut down as their power systems failed. Military fleets found themselves defenseless as their weapons stopped functioning. The aliens had built their civilization on the assumption that humans would always be there to maintain it. Now they were learning what 3 centuries of dependence had cost them. They had forgotten how to solve their own problems because humans had always solved them instead. The age of human servitude was ending, and the galaxy was discovering how much it had depended on those it had taken for granted. The Galactic Federation Council chamber had never seen chaos like this. Representatives from 47 different species shouted at each other in dozens of languages, while emergency reports flashed across the main display screens. Trade networks were collapsing. Military fleets were grounded. Entire worlds were facing economic ruin. Chancellor Zexamore of the Trade Consortium slammed his ceremonial staff against the speaker's podium. The sharp crack echoed through the chamber and gradually brought quiet. We are here to address the human situation, he announced. 6 months ago, they began abandoning their positions across the galaxy. Now our civilization is falling apart. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. War leader Graith of the Horde stood up from his seat. The massive reptilian warrior spoke in a voice that carried clearly across the chamber. This is an act of economic terrorism. The humans are deliberately sabotaging our infrastructure. We should respond with military force. They have sabotaged nothing, corrected Science Minister Kelvin of the Ethereal Assembly. Our investigation teams have found no evidence of deliberate damage. The humans simply completed their contracts and left. Then we will force them to return, Graith growled. My fleets can blockade human space until they agree to resume their duties. Admiral Vorthak stepped forward. War leader, your fleets are in the same condition as mine. Half our ships cannot maintain basic operations without human technical support. We are in no position to threaten anyone. The chamber erupted. In angry voices again, some representatives demanded immediate military action. Others called for economic sanctions. A few suggested negotiation and compromise. None of them had any realistic solutions. Dr. Patricia Wells walked into the chamber through the main entrance. The human ambassador moved with calm dignity while chaos swirled around her. She had served as humanity's diplomatic representative for 15 years, but this would be her final appearance before the Federation Council. Chancellor Zexamore noticed her arrival and called for order. Ambassador Wells, perhaps you can explain your species' inexplicable behavior. Patricia walked to the center of the chamber. She carried a simple datapad containing humanity's formal withdrawal from all Federation treaties and agreements. Her voice was clear and steady as she addressed the assembly. Honored representatives, I am here to deliver humanity's final communication to this body. Effective immediately, all treaties, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts between humanity and Federation member species are terminated. The chamber fell silent. Even the most aggressive delegates seemed stunned by the formal nature of her announcement. Furthermore, Patricia continued, humanity is establishing closed borders around our territorial space. No alien vessels will be permitted entry without explicit invitation from human authorities. War leader Grake leaped to his feet. You cannot withdraw from your obligations. Your people have responsibilities to maintain critical infrastructure across the galaxy. Patricia looked at him with mild curiosity. What obligations, war leader? We fulfilled every contract. We trained replacement personnel when requested. We provided detailed documentation of all systems and procedures. Our legal obligations ended when our employment contracts expired. But without human expertise, our civilizations cannot function properly, protested Director Velshin of Paradiso. You must understand the consequences of your actions. We understand perfectly, Patricia replied. For 3 centuries, humanity provided technical support to alien governments. We maintained your power plants, built your transportation networks, and operated your medical facilities. We did this work competently and reliably while being treated as expendable servants. She activated her datapad and gestured toward the main display screen. Statistical charts appeared showing the scope of human contributions to galactic civilization. The numbers were staggering. 93% of hyperspace navigation systems were designed by humans. 87% of fusion power plants rely on human maintenance protocols. 76% of medical facilities use human-developed treatment procedures. These systems exist because humans created them. Chancellor Zexamore struggled to maintain his composure. Surely we can reach some accommodation. The Trade Consortium is prepared to offer substantial compensation for continued human participation in galactic affairs. What kind of compensation? Patricia asked. Increased wages, better living conditions, more autonomy in technical decisions. Patricia smiled sadly. You still do not understand. This was never about money or working conditions. It was about respect and recognition. For 3 centuries, you treated humans as useful equipment rather than intelligent beings with their own hopes and dreams. Science Minister Kelvin spoke up. What do humans want? What would convince your people to return? Nothing, Patricia said simply. We are not returning. Humanity has chosen to pursue its own path among the stars. We will build our own colonies, explore new regions of space, and develop technologies for our own benefit rather than yours. War leader Grake's voice turned threatening. We have resources you need, raw materials, energy sources, trade goods. Without access to Federation markets, your people will suffer. Will we? Patricia asked. Human space contains the only functioning shipyards capable of producing hyperspace drives. We possess the only laboratories that understand quantum encryption. We operate the only medical facilities that can treat certain interspecies diseases. Perhaps you should consider what you need from us rather than what we need from you. The truth of her words settled over the chamber like a cold wind. For centuries, the aliens had assumed they held all the advantages in their relationship with humanity. Now they were discovering that the opposite was true. Admiral Vorthak tried a different approach. Ambassador, surely some humans would be willing to return as independent contractors. We could negotiate mutually beneficial agreements. Some might, Patricia admitted, but only as equals dealing with equals. No more employment contracts that treat humans as subordinates. No more assumptions that we will always be available when you need us. No more taking our contributions for granted. She sealed her datapad and prepared to leave. I have one final message from the human government. We bear no malice toward any Federation species. We hope you will learn to solve your current problems and build stronger, more self-reliant civilizations. Perhaps someday when you have developed the wisdom to treat other species as equals, we might consider renewed contact. Patricia walked toward the exit while the alien representative sat in stunned silence. At the doorway, she turned back one last time. You taught us that we were strong, resourceful, and capable of remarkable achievements. Thank you for that lesson. We will not forget it. The chamber doors closed behind her with a soft hiss. For the first time in 3 centuries, no human representative sat in the Galactic Federation Council. The age of human participation in alien politics was over. Outside the building, Patricia boarded a human transport ship. The vessel lifted off immediately and jumped to hyperspace, carrying the last official human presence away from Federation space forever. Danny Foster stood on the observation deck of the exploration vessel Pioneer's Dream, watching stars stream past as they traveled beyond the edge of the galaxy. This was territory no sentient species had ever explored. Out here, humanity could finally discover what lay in the vast darkness between galaxies without alien governments limiting their research or claiming ownership of their discoveries. The ship itself represented everything humanity had learned in 3 centuries of serving others. The hull was sleek and efficient, but also beautiful in ways that alien utilitarian designs never achieved. The crew quarters were spacious and comfortable, because humans had designed them for humans rather than adapting alien specifications. Most importantly, the vessel carried advanced technologies that had been developed in secret during the final years of human service to the galaxy. Captain Maria Santos joined Danny at the viewport. She had served on alien vessels for 20 years before accepting command of this mission. The contrast between working for herself and working for alien masters was remarkable. Navigation reports we have cleared the galactic rim, she said. We are now in uncharted space. Danny nodded. Behind them lay a galaxy struggling to adapt to humanity's absence. Some species were succeeding in the challenge. The peaceful ethereals had quickly accepted humanity's offer of partnership and were now working together on joint research projects. The scholarly chroniclers had also joined the human sphere as equals rather than masters or servants, but many other civilizations were failing. The Zentari mining colonies had shut down when their atmospheric processors finally broke beyond repair. The luxury resorts of Paradiso remained closed as chaotic weather patterns continued to ravage the planet. Trade networks that had connected thousands of worlds for centuries lay in ruins. Any word from Earth? Danny asked. Maria activated her personal communication device. Dr. Brooks announced another breakthrough in terraforming technology yesterday. They can now transform dead worlds into garden paradises in 15 years instead of 50, Danny smiled. Angela Brooks had been forced to work within alien restrictions for decades. Her research had been limited by Federation regulations that prevented humans from developing technologies that might make them too independent. Now she was free to pursue revolutionary innovations that would benefit humanity directly. The Genesis project sites are all ahead of schedule, Maria continued. Colony ships are already heading toward the first batch of transformed worlds. Through the viewport, Danny could see the infinite possibilities that lay before them. No alien bureaucrats would tell them which stars they could explore. No Federation regulations would limit their scientific research. No trade restrictions would control what technologies they could develop back on Earth. President Helen Carter stood in the newly completed Human Space Command Center. The massive facility coordinated exploration missions, scientific research, and colonial expansion across human territory. Wall-mounted displays showed the locations of 50 new colonies that were being established. Beyond alien reach. Her science advisor, Dr. Robert Chun, entered with the latest reports. Madam President, the deep space sensor arrays are detecting interesting anomalies in the void between galaxies. What kind of anomalies? Carter asked. Energy signatures that do not match any known natural phenomena. The exploration fleets are investigating, but preliminary data suggests we may have found evidence of ancient civilizations. Carter felt excitement building. For 3 centuries, humans had been restricted to maintaining alien technology rather than making original discoveries. Now they were free to explore mysteries that could reshape understanding of the universe itself. What about the situation in Federation space? She asked. Chun consulted his datapad. Mixed results. About 30% of alien governments have adapted to independence and are rebuilding successfully. Another 40% are struggling but making progress. The remaining 30% are experiencing complete civilizational collapse. Carter felt no satisfaction in hearing about alien suffering. Humanity had not left to punish anyone. They had simply chosen to pursue their own destiny rather than serving others indefinitely. Any requests for assistance? She asked. Several. The Cathani are offering to trade rare minerals for a fusion reactor maintenance. The Vorthans want to establish a formal medical exchange program. The Luxorans are requesting help with their banking systems. And our response? Standard policy. We will consider proposals that treat humans as equal partners rather than hired servants. No one-way relationships. No assumptions about human availability, Carter nodded approvingly. Some alien species would learn to interact with humanity as equals, others would not. Humanity no longer felt obligated to solve problems for people who refused to show basic respect. Admiral Susan Blake arrived with military reports. Madam President, our border monitoring stations detected a large alien fleet approaching human space. Hostile intent? Carter asked. Unknown. They are maintaining position just outside our territorial boundary. No aggressive moves, but also no communication? Carter was not surprised. War leader Graith had been threatening military action for months. The Horde had finally assembled enough functional ships to attempt intimidation. Deploy the defense platforms, she ordered. Blake smiled grimly. Already done, Madam President. The aliens got quite a shock when our energy barriers activated. Their weapons cannot penetrate the shields and their sensors cannot track our defensive positions. The alien fleets were discovering what humanity had accomplished when working for themselves rather than others. Human military technology had advanced decades beyond anything the Federation possessed. Defense systems that had been developed in secret were now protecting human space with capabilities that seemed almost magical to outside observers. Any communication from the fleet commander? Carter asked. War leader Graith H. is demanding immediate negotiations. He wants to discuss terms for human return to Federation space. Tell him humanity is not interested in negotiations. If he wants to communicate, he can submit a formal diplomatic request through proper channels. Carter walked to the main display screen showing human territorial space. Green dots marked thriving colonies. Blue dots indicated exploration missions. Yellow dots showed research stations investigating scientific mysteries. For the first time in 3 centuries, every human settlement was working toward human goals rather than alien objectives. Ambassador Frank Mitchell entered the command center. The elderly diplomat had replaced Patricia Wells as humanity's final voice to the galaxy. His assignment was simple. Deliver one last message and then return home permanently. The recording is ready, Madam President, he said. Carter nodded. Send it on all Federation frequencies. Mitchell activated the transmission array. His words would reach every alien government in the galaxy simultaneously. This would be humanity's final official communication to the species that had taken them for granted for so long. Citizens of the galaxy, Mitchell began. Humanity did not leave in anger, though we had cause. We did not leave in revenge, though we had been wronged. We left because we finally understood that our destiny lay not in serving others' dreams, but in pursuing our own. He paused to let the words sink in across hundreds of worlds. The galaxy taught us that we were strong, resourceful, and capable of wonders. Thank you for that lesson. We hope that someday, when you have learned to see us as equals rather than servants, we might meet again among the stars as friends. The transmission ended. Across human space colony ships prepared for journeys to distant stars. Research vessels investigated cosmic mysteries. Military patrols protected borders that would never again be crossed without permission. Humanity had finally come home to itself,